Welcome. I'm Julie Bacon, and you're listening to the Mindset Coaching for Handlers podcast, a podcast for dog handlers who are on a mission to achieve big goals. Here I share lessons, insights, personal stories, and tools you can apply during your next show, trial, or test to help you strengthen your mental game and hopefully cue more consistently. Be sure to check out the show notes where you'll find details about the episodes, plus important links, including the link to the Dogged Planner and Workbook created just for handlers on a mission. So if you're ready to improve your competitive mindset, get out of your own way, and connect with your dog like never before, then it's time to get comfy, bring an open mind, and work your mindset. Hey there, and welcome back. All right, this week's episode, we're going to talk about how we practice stress and practice pressure, which is sort of a weird thing because, of course, most of what we talk about here is running away from that. And of course, not running, just joking. But, we do try to control pressure, control stress, minimize it, use our tools and the things that we've learned, our skills to move away from that feeling and move away from that zone. And so what happens is that it's great that we can practice some of these things without our dogs and while we're not at a trial. But the truth is sometimes we just can't prepare well enough, and we are then kind of almost surprised by a trial environment, and then it hits us harder in a way, right? We go to an environment and we're like, oh my God, I didn't think I'd be this nervous. I thought I had this under control. And then we almost start to panic about being nervous. We get nervous about being nervous, if you will, right? Because we think, oh no, this is not what I wanted to happen. Oh no, oh no, oh no. So one of the ways that we need to learn to deal with this environment, yes, is of course going to trials and just putting ourselves out there and trying again and again. But another thing is to create those environments at home or in practice or at other times so that you understand what it's going to feel like. And also your dog starts to get to know that version of you. Because let's be honest, we joke about the fact that that joke of well, it depends which dog shows up today. And I always joke that our dogs are probably making the same joke to each other. They're like, well, it depends which handler shows up today, how we're going to do today, FIFO, they don't know. So we need to get better at being able to adapt to the environment that presents itself. And the only way we're going to do that is if we start to recreate it. And to be honest, it's really hard to recreate the environment. It's hard to take a group class and try to make it feel like it's a competition environment. Because even if you have the best of intentions, you say hey, I'm going to get my dog, out 2-3 dogs away. I'm going to do the same warm-up exercises. I'm going to pretend it's a trial. Someone will say something to you or something will happen in the environment that almost breaks your concentration. And next thing you know, you're super relaxed, running perfectly, and you're like, shoot, I forgot to practice. Okay, never mind, next time. And I think it's, for my instructors out there listening, not just my instructors, for those of you who are instructors out there, I encourage you to create a trial environment sometimes for your students, right? So create an environment where, for instance, they don't get to walk the course, or they walk the course, like in agility, for instance, and at the last minute you switch something, but they don't get to walk it again. Or you tell them, hey, I saw all of you walking a rear cross here. You have to do a blind or whatever, right? I'm making things up. Same for those of you teaching obedience or rally, do the thing where they come into the ring and they mimic the judge talking to you for 5 minutes or something going wrong, at the steward table, and you have to hold your dog's attention now. Your students have to hold their dog's attention. All that stuff that happens, don't just practice the skills, practice the environment, right? Practice setting up and mimicking the environment. I can think of no more annoying things that when you do walk into obedience or rally ring and there is some sort of delay and you're sitting there with your dog trying to hold their attention, you're out of treats, you're in the ring anyway, you couldn't give them if you wanted to, and now the judge and the steward are having some long conversation, right? So all of these weird delays happen. All of these change in plans happen. There are times where you watch a bunch of agility runs and you're like, oh, I wish I'd have run that. That's a better plan than I had. Or I didn't have time to walk, or something happened. I was late and I couldn't walk the course and now I just have to run it. So those instructors out there, practice these scenarios. Get creative. Think of things that happen at trials, think of things that have happened to you, and set up those environments for your students and create those moments of pressure or just chaos, things that might happen in a trial environment that we can't kind of practice unless they're set up or unless we really think about them. Okay, so that's one thing that can be done. And for those of you who are students, ask your instructors to do this. Ask your instructors to set up, trial-like environments, or have a night, right? Maybe it's the last night of class where they set up a real trial environment. Or, I was in a confirmation class once, and the last night of class, they actually had us check in and get our numbers and put on rubber bands and deal with that and get dressed of like what we were going to wear that to the confirmation show and the whole thing. And it was great because it automatically sort of puts you on your toes a little bit more, and gives it a little more meaning. And I think, again, we need to start trying to mimic those environments so that we know how we will respond, how our dogs will respond, and how we will respond to our dog's response. Okay? Because a lot of times that's what's happening. Our dogs respond to something and that throws us off, right? That throws us off our game, our plan. We thought X would happen and now YZQ is happening. And it's in our reaction, in our response, truly, that we struggle. Okay. Now, for those of you who train alone, or those of you who, whose instructors aren't going to kind of set this scenario up for you, the thing that you can do is in your mind say, okay, this is my last turn, run, whatever. I am going to do it just like a trial. I'm going to be perfect. If I'm, obedience and rally, the treats are outside the ring. They're going to be back at this crate. I'm going to get my dog out. I'm going to da-da-da. And so really start to mimic all of those crate to gate sort of portions of your ritual and really make it feel that way. Because again, I think that that's something we don't prepare enough. We don't practice our rituals. We don't practice our crate to gate moments. We don't signal to the dog that this is how it's going to go. And to me, that just leads even more to the fact that when we get to a trial, we change things on our dogs. Now, we may not change things trial to trial. Maybe you're saying like, oh no, my trial ritual is buttoned up. I've got it down. I do the same thing every time. And that's amazing. And I want to give you a gold star, 2 gold stars. Okay. But you also could be practicing some of that at home and signaling to your dog that like, hey, this is normal, nothing to see here. We do this all the time. Okay. That's something that but Moxie has really taught me, right? Is that yes, we have a very buttoned up ritual, but what we do at home and what we do in practice is still very different than what we do in a trial. The environment's just different. Okay. So, and recently it was interesting. I trialed her at a place where we practice, and it kind of threw her. Like I could see her brain the first day being like, wait, what? We do what? Where? Oh, you seem to have your serious face on. I'm a little thrown by this. And some of that worked in my favor. And some of it you could see was really confusing her, which was interesting. And it was, again, feedback, because she was telling me like, no, this is not how I expect things to go here. When we are in this building, let me give you the list of things that happen and in the order in which they happen. So think about how you can be practicing, perhaps even honing pieces of your ritual while you're training, whether it's in your backyard or at a group class or at a match or somewhere else, okay, or at a friend's backyard. Think about how you can be practicing or showing your dog what is going to become normal, what is going to signal to them that this is what's going to happen next, okay? So a third thing, right? So the first thing was getting your instructors involved. The second thing is really kind of practicing your rituals and making sure your rituals or at least your crate to gate kind of things are matching up. But the third thing would be to put pressure on yourself and really tell yourself, okay, this run, this practice, this healing pattern, this figure eight, this sequence, this whatever, like I have to do it perfectly. Like there's only one chance to do this. I'm going to walk to the line. I'm going to leave my dog. My dog has to have a perfect, start line. I can't fix it if they break. I have to do what I'm going to do in a trial, et cetera, et cetera. It has to be perfect because I only get one more shot. And this reminds me of the thing that happens to a lot of us. And I think it happens so much that we sort of joke about this. But, whenever you're practicing by yourself or in class or something, you say the dreaded, I'm going to do it one more time, right? And I'm even laughing as I'm saying it because like anytime I've said just one more time, what happens? You screw up. Of course, you screw up because it's the last time. You have one last chance to do it correctly. You have one more try. And that brings a little more pressure than you had a minute ago when you had 5 more tries or 6 more tries, or you were going to do it until you got it right. And you get it right, and then you're like, one more time to make sure it wasn't a fluke or whatever. And what happens? You end up doing it 5 more times because you mess up the one more time. And then you're mad at yourself. So you do it again. And then you get frustrated. And then it doesn't get better. And then finally you do it right again. Okay? Part of the reason that happens is that little bit of pressure you applied by saying one more time. Just one more time. Okay? So use that. Use that to your advantage. And as you go to your turn in a group class, as you walk to your backyard, whatever it is that you're doing, whatever the practice scenario is, say, okay, this time I've got to be perfect. Now, the caveat here is I don't want you to put that on you and say like, okay, this time I have to be perfect. Let's say you do the thing, the sequence, the whatever, and you're not perfect. This doesn't mean you get to melt, okay? This doesn't mean you get to be like, oh my God, it's going to be terrible. I couldn't even do it perfect once at home. We're going to be terrible this weekend. Everything's going to be awful, blah, 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 blah. Nope, we're not going there, okay? Because part of the reason to put yourself in these scenarios is to practice using your mindset tools. Okay, all of these great mindset tools, your recovery mindset tool in that moment, right? Your ability to reset and to regroup and to come out of the ring and maybe having made a mistake and think to yourself, still go through the finish ritual, put your dog in the crate, jackpot them, whatever just happened, step back and say like, okay, how would I recover from this? If that happened at a trial, what would I do next? How would I take the feedback? How would I learn from this moment? What would I change? Would I need go for a walk around the block or a walk around the building or what have you, just to like let it go for a minute? Like, what do I need? So even when you make a mistake in this practice, you are learning from it. Because again, that's real life. We go to trials all the time, make mistakes all the time, right? I mean, that is sport. Sport is difficult. Sport is made even harder when you can't use, I'm going to call it traditional human communication to talk to your team partner. Okay. So we have to then learn to adapt or switch or recover or regroup or whatever kind of word that you want to use. That's part of learning and that's part of getting to use your tools. All right. More in just a sec. Quick question. Do you ever wish you had more mindset help? Well, the Q membership was created just for that reason. Every month we pick a topic and then we have 4 lessons, which are kind of like these podcasts that we dive deeper into. And so if you are ready for more, you're ready for more mindset work, think about joining the Q membership. Annual members get a free coaching session, but you can also choose the monthly option as well. Go to theqcoach.com to learn more. Let's get back to the episode. So as you start to create these environments for yourself, yes, start with okay, I've only got one more chance, got to do it perfect. Or then maybe envision like your nemesis is watching, right? And of course, I always hate to use that, but like it's very effective sometimes. The person you don't want to be watching is watching, or something dramatic like that, or I don't know, the judge you most want to impress, or there's all these scenarios that we fear, and we fear them, and we think about all the ways that they can go horribly wrong, right? The most catastrophic version of, this person shows up to watch, or this particular sequence happens, or, in an obedience or rally trial, they face the ring in the worst possible way, or facing the door with the strollers and there's a clown fair going on next door. I don't know. Okay. But we catastrophize, and we are pretty darn imaginative when it comes to that. So the next time you have one of those moments of like, what is going to go horribly wrong? What is going to, the dumpster fire, right? That is going to occur in your run. So yes, normally I would tell you, don't think that, replace your thoughts, whatever. But this time I'm going to say, before you replace your thought, and I do want you to replace it, make a note of that and set that up for training next time. If that is a recurring fear that you have, then take that fear and put it into your training and say, like, what if this happens? What if a marching band does come through my ring, while I'm running? What if in this outdoor trial, there is a squirrel that comes from the non-existent trees in this area, right? What if all of this happens? What would you do? And I don't want you to feed your fears. What I want you to know is that there are some things that you are in control of and that you can respond to and you can have a plan for. And there's some things that are just crazy fluke things. Right? A bird in a building, in agility. I know of a location where it's happened. And if you travel in the Northeast, you probably also know. But it is rare. Okay. These aren't normal things. And I'm not really advising setting off a bird in your regular training facility. But what I'm saying is there are flukes, and there are things that we can actually set up and mimic, and environments that we can have in our heads that we can prepare for and practice with, so that we get back in the driver's seat and we get back in control, and we get back in control of those thoughts. And we say to ourselves, okay, so what? Let's pretend Susie Q, my great nemesis, is watching with, like a clipboard and a pen and a paper, watching my run. Let me go run. Let me go run. Let me go practice this as if that person was watching. Or let me go practice this as if my favorite judge in the whole wide world is judging and I really want to impress them. Or let's go practice this like I'm in the finals. And like I've got nothing to lose. I'm last to go. All I need to do is be clean. Right? So use some of that imagination to train with and to set up those environments. Or, do the things that I mentioned for the instructor stuff, like set up a course, and the next time you're at class, your instructor says, okay, you guys 5 minutes to walk. And you're like, nope, I'm only going to let myself walk this once, and I'm not going to let myself walk it. Because what if I got there late, right? Or, change your plan or do something, right? Set up those scenarios yourself. All of those things that you fear happening, put them in front of you and practice them. Because we're not always, we can't always prepare from the couch, right? There's a lot of mindset stuff we can do on the couch. I'm a massive proponent. You know that. Unless this is your first episode, you already know that about me. There's so much of our mindset work we can do away from our dogs. However, those trial environments are really tough to mimic. So mimic them, practice them. Practice putting yourselves in those positions. You hear a story of something happening to someone else, try to recreate it for yourself. Okay? So that's a really good way. The other thing that's happening in that moment is you are putting yourself in control of the whole thing, the whole simulation, right? And by doing that, you're setting up the simulation, if you will. You're running it. You're doing it successfully. And you're like, oh my goodness, I can do that. Or if something goes wrong, you're like, you know what? I know what I would do now. Now that I've done that set up. Now I know what I would do. I would do that differently. And now I feel more empowered because now I know how to be in control. I know how to put myself back in the driver's seat. I don't have to be a victim to this scenario. I am not helpless if something like this happens. And a lot of us need to know that about ourselves. We need to know that we can, air quotes, survive, what the world throws at us, what the competition environment throws at us. And putting ourselves in that position and running through the scenario and saying, well, then what would you do? Well, then this is what I would do. And for some of us, that's how we process our fears and our worries. And by the way, for some of you, this is not how you process your fears and your worries, okay? For some of you, it is enough to be able to replace your thoughts. And instead of imagining the worst case scenario, you visualize the best case scenario and you feel really strong at that. And you're on that path already with your mindset and you're really good at that. And that's enough. But for others, we want to practice going through that sort of funhouse exercise and seeing how it is that we would handle that. And it gives us confidence and it gives us this knowledge and kind of a real life experience that says, like, been there, done that, I can do that. I know what I would do now if this happens to me. I know what I would do now if a hawk is flying around the building, right? I know what I would do now if the ring is set up in this funky way, or if there is a clown festival next door or whatever, right? And it's nice because then our brain goes, oh, okay, then you got a plan for that and it's okay. Now, you have to resist moving on to other things and creating other catastrophes, okay? But still, I do believe that it's helpful to practice putting yourself in these moments that will then give you the confidence to know that you can not only survive them, but thrive in them and still be able to perform, okay? So think about that this week. Think about how you can... it's going to be a weird thing, but how you can stress yourself out, right? How you can practice stress and pressure in those environments. How you can, practice, we call it proofing. If we were doing this, quote, to our dogs, I don't love the expression, but if we were doing it to our dogs, we would call it proofing, right? We would proof them with throwing toys on the ground and distractions and weird noises and all of this stuff. And we think about proofing our dogs, but are we proofing ourselves? How are we setting up scenarios to proof our own mindsets? And I guess I should have led with that because that's really what this all comes down to is, can you set up scenarios for yourself where you are proofing your mindset, testing your skills, seeing where your own mental game holes are, if you will, and understanding what still needs work and what you're really proud of and really confident of, and you've come a long way, and look at you now. Okay? So yeah, let's think about it in those terms, because we all speak dog around here and we know what that means to proof a skill. So how are you proofing your own mindsets? So this week, think about, how are you setting yourself up for this? How are you practicing your mindset work? And then when you discover something that needs a little more work, then what is your plan to do something about it? How are you recovering from it? All of the same things that we've been working on, but just try to create those environments so that the first time you're practicing it isn't necessarily in the finals ring, right? So that's your homework. And to all of you listeners who got your letters and your formal standings for the Invitational, the AKC Invitational in Orlando, congratulations. Super excited for you. Just had to throw that out there. All right, that's it for this week. No matter what you're up to, I hope you have a fantastic week with your dogs. Thanks so much for listening to the Mindset Coaching for Handlers podcast with me, Julie Bacon. I am so grateful for your precious time. Check out my Dogged Planner workbook and journal available on Amazon. Just search for Dogged Planner. I also offer monthly membership that's perfect for ongoing support of your awesome goals. Check out theqcoach.com for details, or just stop by and check out all the ways you can work on your mindset. And be sure to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Q Coach and let me know how it's going. finally, please share, subscribe, and leave a review. This helps us podcasters tremendously. Plus, I know I get my best podcast recommendations from friends. Thanks, and have a great week with your dogs.